Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel, and hi if you're new here, I'm Jade, and it's time for my monthly wrap up. So I've got to start by saying that September was a particularly busy month for me, and I didn't think that I would actually get to read that much. I had my dad coming to stay from the UK, which was amazing, and obviously I spent a lot of my time with him, like really wanting to cherish that, so I was reading maybe a few chapters before bed each night, but I just wasn't reading in the same capacity that I usually do. However, you may have noticed from the title of the video, I actually read 10 books instead of my usual 9. I will say though, 4 of them are pretty short, so that's kind of why I think it's ended up this way. Plus, as soon as my dad left, we had a lot of rainy days, so aside from work, I wasn't really going out, so I just had more time to read. I say that though, I did go out quite a lot. It was still quite busy. I had my actual in-person book clubs. I went to a Renaissance fair. Like there was a lot, but yeah, I'm proud that I managed to read this much. So without further ado, let me pick up the first book that I read. So my first read of September was Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. And I gotta say, that was a hard going first book of the month. That being said, I did end up actually quite enjoying this book. I mainly picked it up because my online book club were reading this, and honestly, I just love it. Like, how stunning is this book? Look at these sprayed edges. Like, yeah, love it. Also, I read Yellowface this year, which was my first R.F. Kuang book, and I loved Yellowface. So I was really intrigued to get into another R.F. Kuang book. So Katabasis follows a girl called Alice, and she's sort of at this like magic school, I guess you could say, in Cambridge. It's got like slight dark academia vibes, I guess. And she is studying there, and she thinks she has killed her professor. So as a result, she decides to try and cast a spell to take her into hell so that she can go and retrieve his soul. Her sort of rival student, Peter, who's also a very top student at this magic school, he finds out about Alice's plan and insists on coming with her, and then they both go off together into hell to try and save their professor. And then basically the story is their sort of navigation through hell, like, what the depiction of hell is throughout this book. It kind of definitely draws influence from like Dante's Inferno and books like that. I don't want to say too much about how hell is in the book because I feel like otherwise I'm kind of spoiling a lot of what the book is. But yeah, essentially it's their journey through hell. So as you can see, I rated it 4 stars. I personally ended up really enjoying this, especially once I sort of got through to the second half of the book. It really sort of picked up pace for me. I was really, really intrigued by the main plot. I liked seeing the dynamic between Alice and Peter. However, I will say it's a very, very, very theory heavy. And therefore, I just don't feel like this book will be for everyone. I kind of feel like this book's going to be a little bit like Marmite. Like people are going to love it or they're going to hate it. I also gave it 4 stars. So you can't say I like loved it because I didn't give it a 5 star, but I still really enjoyed reading it. The only reason I didn't give it the 5 stars for me was because I just felt a little bit distracted from the plot with the amount of theory in here. But for some people, I think this will just be a lot and it will be a DNF for people, I'll be honest. So this book references a lot of big literary books. It also references a lot of philosophy and philosophers. There's a lot of mathematics and mathematical problems and equations and stuff in this book. What I will say is I do have a degree in drama and literature, and I also took many modules in philosophy. I did an A-level in philosophy, so I have heard of a lot of what was mentioned in this book through my degree. But if I hadn't done my degree and didn't know this stuff and hadn't done A-level philosophy, I feel like I'd be a lot more lost in the book. I do think for some people it won't matter too much. I feel like you'll just sort of skim over a lot of that theory stuff and then just enjoy the plot. But for me, I'm that person that just wants to understand it all. So I did find myself Googling the odd thing that I didn't know about, especially like the mathematical part, because I never studied maths past GCSE at high school. So I didn't know all of those theories. So yeah, for me, I just got a little bit distracted from the plot because I just kept Googling theories and seeing if they were real, because R.F. Kuang does state in here that not everything is real, that, essentially it is fiction, but a lot of the stuff is real in this book, and I was just very, very intrigued to see what was and wasn't. So yeah, overall, I did enjoy this, but I do think, as I said, that it's not going to be for everyone. I think if you don't mind something that's a little bit more heavy, that isn't completely plot driven, that has some sort of theorizing in it, I think you'll really like it. But I think if you're someone who's just looking for a lot of plot and a lot more to characters and their relationships, etc., I don't feel that maybe this is for you. So the second book I picked up was Fearful by Lauren Roberts, which is her new novella. So this isn't very long. This was one of the shorter books that I read, probably the shortest of the entire month. But this is the final novella to the Powerless series. So like the final book to that series, from my understanding. I don't believe there's going to be any more. We've had like the 3 main ones, and then we had another novella in between books 1 and 2. And this is the final novella, which has come after book 3. I obviously can't talk about this too much because I don't want to give the plot of the whole series away, but what I will say is we get the perspective of Kit in this book. So it's what happened in book 3. So I can't really talk about what happened, but it's Kit's perspective and also someone called Mara. And essentially in Mara's point of view, we learn a lot about Blair and Lenny as characters. So yeah, I can't really say any more without giving any of the plot away. And obviously if you're still working through that series, if you haven't read book 3, I would spoil everything. So I can't talk too much. But as you can probably see, I gave it 3.5 stars because I liked it. I liked getting to see a little bit more into that world, but this book is not necessary at all to read the books. You definitely don't need to read the novellas in this series. Although I loved the first novella, there was just something about it I loved. I felt this one was a little lacking. Like it was nice to get the extra info, but there was nothing gripping at all about this, to be honest. So what I would say is if you've loved the series and you haven't read this novella, it might be worth picking up and giving it a read. It's not boring because it's still the same world, but there's just nothing that amazing about it. So if you weren't like really invested in the original books, then maybe it's not worth it. But I enjoyed it. So the third book I picked up was The Enchanted Greenhouse by Sarah Beth Durst. This is kind of a sequel to The Spell Shop, but I feel like I can talk about the plot here because they don't really collide. They definitely could be read as standalone, but this was chosen for me by my TBR jar, I believe. And yeah, I ended up really enjoying this. So essentially in this book, we follow a girl called Turlu. She has been turned into a statue and she suddenly gets released. Now, the reason she was in a statue was because she used magic, which was classed as being illegal then, and she created a plant that could talk, who is in the spell shop. So that's kind of its tie-in, that this book follows the creator of the character Kaz in the spell shop. So in this book, she gets released from the statue, that was her punishment, by a gardener. And she finds out that this gardener has released her, thinking she's some powerful sorcerer that is going to be able to help him with reviving and saving some greenhouses where all the plants are dying. And yeah, it kind of goes on from there. So there is obviously magic in this story, so it feels very good for this kind of time of year, fall kind of time. So if you haven't read it yet, I would suggest picking it up, and The Spell Shop too, because I just feel like these books are super heartwarming. So I feel like they give like cozy vibes, which I like for this time of year. And this has quite a lot in it. It has like a romance subplot, it has bits about family dynamics and family relationships. So I do feel like this book brings quite a lot to the table. It wasn't like outstanding, which is why I gave it 4.25, but for what it is, it does everything you need it to. It's like a little warm hug. Like, yeah. So the fourth book I read was actually an ARC. So I don't have a physical copy of this one, but I read it digitally, so I will display the front cover on the screen. But that is Every Now and Then by Erin, Olivier. So I guess you could describe this as a sort of like cute cowboy romance story. It does have some spice in it, I will tell you that now. So if you don't like your spice, this isn't going to be for you. But overall, I thought it was a really good read. So this book is written from a dual perspective. So our main female character in this story, she's a widow. She's gone through quite a lot, which sort of unravels throughout the story. I can't say too much because otherwise I would be giving spoilers. But essentially she goes to a bar, and in the same bar, our main male character happens to be there, and he's actually a really famous frontman for a massive country music band in Nashville. So they meet, they have this one night stand, and then they kind of fall for each other in that moment, but because it's a one night stand, they leave. She leaves without leaving any contact details, and then they can't stop thinking about each other. He tries to track her down, it affects a lot of his life, and then eventually they obviously do meet again, and it sort of, goes on from there. So the reason I gave it 4 stars is because I genuinely really enjoyed the story, but for me, the spice was just a little bit too immediate. I'm a bit more of a slow burn person. If you don't mind your spice being a bit more immediate and that one night stand vibe, you probably will like this even more than I did, even though I did really enjoy it. But essentially, I did end up really enjoying the characterization of both of our male main character and the female main character. Like, I like seeing their relationship grow, navigating different things. And you know what? This book kind of encompasses a lot of people's dream, which, you know, when you're younger, you always dream of like meeting your favorite person from a band and then they fall in love with you and you end up with them. However, the difference is here, she doesn't know country music and she doesn't know the band, so she didn't know he was famous. Our main male character really embodies that kind of dream. Okay. So yeah, if you like your cute romances with a dash of cowboy, I wouldn't call this too cowboy because it's more just like country music based. But yeah, if you like those vibes, definitely check this one out. Yeah, I thought it was really good. So the next 3 books I read, yes, I'm going to talk about them all as one, is The Summer I Turned Pretty Trilogy by Jenny Han. If you haven't seen, I have a whole vlog on these of me reading them, my thoughts, comparing them to the TV show. So I don't want to dwell on these too much in my wrap up. I feel like you should head over there if you're interested in these books. But what I will just generally say is that they are YA, they feel very YA, the characters are quite immature, there's some very stupid decisions, and I do feel like the TV show made it a bit more mature. And so even though I loved the TV show, I didn't like love the books. I kind of just went with my, 3-star rating, which basically means I liked it, but it wasn't memorable kind of rating. Because honestly, I feel like if I hadn't seen the TV show, I don't think I'd like these books. I think I would have rated them even lower. However, because I already have a connection to the characters, I did sort of enjoy reading them, even though I could sort of tell that I didn't like them, if that makes any sense at all. So therefore, if you're a fan of the show, maybe it's worth picking up just so you can compare. But I would say if you don't know anything about these and you were considering it at all, just go with the TV show. I do have Jenny Han's To All the Boys I Loved Before on my TBR, so I will be interested to see how that reads when I eventually get around to it, because I haven't seen the movie for that either, and I feel like I don't want to see the movie first. I want to read that one first just to see what it's like. As I said, if this intrigues you at all and you want to know a bit more about the plots, etc., it will contain spoilers. Go and watch my The Summer I Turned Pretty reading vlog. So yeah, that was a very quick summary of books 5, 6, and 7. So moving on to book 8, we have Finlay, Donovan, Knocks 'Em Dead by Elle, Cosimano. This again is a second book in a series, so I can't talk too much about the plot because I don't want to spoil things for people that maybe have considered picking up the series, but this is one of my in-person book clubs reads, and we read the first book last month, so if you saw my August wrap up, it would have been in there. So in September we just decided to go with book 2 because honestly everyone loved book 1. So if that doesn't persuade you to pick up this series, especially if you like a little bit of like a mystery with a subplot of romance, yeah, I don't know what will, because honestly everyone in my book club loved it. Just a quick summary of the overall like themes of the books is basically they follow a woman called Finlay, and she's a struggling single mother who's like split up from her ex. Her ex causes a bit of issues. She's struggling for money. She's a writer. She's not really making anything. And someone mistakes her for being an assassin, basically, a like contract killer. And she kind of gets roped up into this world. So as I said, bit of a like mystery, drama, thriller with a romance subplot. I rated the second book 4 stars. I gave the first one 5 because I think I wasn't really knowing what to expect and I just got really absorbed into it. For this one, I still really enjoyed it. I just feel like I didn't enjoy it as much as the first book, and it ends on quite a cliffhanger, this one. So I will continue with the series for sure, but I just felt like it was a bit maybe too much of a cliffhanger. It just felt a little bit incomplete. So that's kind of why I gave it 4 stars, but I still clearly really enjoyed it. 4 stars is a good rating. Okay, then at number 9, we have Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. Yay, we found a 5-star this month, because I would say I usually find quite a few. I'm quite good at picking out books I'm going to love, but yeah, this month was kind of lacking, but we got a 5-star. So for those of you that don't know, Two Twisted Crowns is part of a duology. It is the second book in the duology. The first one is called One Dark Window, and that's by Rachel Gillig. And yeah, I just love it. If you haven't read this duology and you like your fantasy, especially like with a little bit of a darker vibe, I feel like it works really well for this time of the year. Go pick them up. I want to say the first book I rated like 4.5 or 4.75. I can't remember. Something like that. Because I did really enjoy the first book, but it ended on a really bad cliffhanger. So I'm so glad that I finally know what happens. But yeah, it just ended on a huge cliffhanger. And I think it took me a little bit of a moment to get into the first book. Whereas obviously I was right in the story in the second one. And it was so gripping. And there was just so much going on. I love the magic system in this world. Like, I have so many positive things I can say that I just had to give it 5 stars because I was hooked. And in the author's acknowledgements part at the end, Rachel Gillig actually said that it was really sad to say goodbye to these characters. And I totally agree. Like, I had the same feeling. I was like, I don't feel like a duology is enough. I need more of them. But I will say, like, it wraps up really well, the story. Like, I don't think it needs anything else, but I just love the characters. But I did speak about One Dark Window, the first book, in my last month's wrap up. So if you are intrigued about these books and you want to know a bit more and you didn't see that wrap up, head back over there and then you'll hear more about it, but I highly recommend them. And then the final read of the month for me was The Rhino Keeper by Jillian Forsberg. I think this was also picked by my TBR jar. But what I love about this is Jillian Forsberg is a local author. She lives here in Wichita, where I live. And so it felt really nice, like obviously supporting a local author. And I thought like the premise and plot to this was rather unique. So I would say essentially it's historical fiction. It is based on a true story. Ultimately, we follow 2 timelines. There is the modern day timeline where we follow a character called Andrea, and she has this sort of breakup from her fiance at the beginning of the novel. So her fiance's family are really into taxidermy, which is where you stuff dead wild animals, if you didn't know. And they sort of have it all around their house. And she's gone there. Her partner's expected to propose. He proposes, and she's so freaked out by all this like sort of trophy hunting of animals that she says no, which I love, by the way. Have a strong mind. If you hate something, if something doesn't feel right, do not enter a relationship. Don't look over those red flags for you. So I love that beginning for her. And then it kind of goes on to her then going off to the Netherlands to study, where she starts studying about Clara the Rhino. And then we have the past timeline where we follow a captain who acquires Clara the Rhino as a baby, and he ends up taking her to Europe because Europe have never seen a rhino. There's never been a rhino there before. And so she becomes a bit of a novelty. He makes money from her. But obviously, do bear in mind, this is obviously set years and years ago when people didn't know that like just taking an animal from its habitat wasn't a good thing. I will say Clara's mother had previously been killed. Clara was motherless, so she was sort of like an orphaned rhino. So you could see her as, humans sort of saving her. Obviously, it is a bit exploitative what happens with her. But what I love about this book is you can tell the captain truly cares and loves for Clara. And like I said, it was obviously set years ago, very different time. And so the past sort of story follows this captain taking her back to Europe, different things that happen on the way. And yeah, there's lots of different things, as you can imagine, a bit of drama with a rhino and moving it around. And I was going to say more, but you know what? I feel like I'd give too much of the plot away. So that's kind of what the story is about. And then obviously the 2 worlds collide in the fact that we're getting the history of Clara, and we've got Andrea in the modern world studying it and her sort of findings with that. And there's a little bit of drama at the end with that too. So I gave it 4 stars because I found it a little slow to get into, but once I was into it, I was so invested in Clara. I must say, I think I kind of preferred the past timeline a little bit. I was just in love with this rhino, I have to say. And also Andrea, the main character in the modern timeline, she was a little bit annoying at first because she was so freaked out by this taxidermy. It was almost like a complete trauma that like dictated everything she was thinking about. And I just felt like that was repeated a little bit much. But the end of her story got really good. And yeah, as I said, I just fell in love with the rhino in the book. So a good solid read for me. And that is everything that I read in September. So I'm kind of excited for October's now reads because obviously I'm going to try and pick some like spooky Halloween fall themed books, hopefully get as much as I can off of my kind of intended full TBR that I can. I don't mind some of them going into November either. I still feel like it's very full vibes. I tend to move towards Christmas like end of November. So yeah, I feel like I've got time. If you want to see a few of the choices for my October TBR, you can go watch my TBR jar video, which would have been, I think, last week's post by the time you watch this. And yeah, I will see you again real soon. Bye.